So, like I mentioned in the Origins video, I was pretty big on the Assassin's Creed games for quite a while there, and there was a while's worth of Assassin's Creed games to be a fan of that series. Especially considering that it was an annual release series where for like a good 7 or so years there was a new Assassin's Creed game out in October or November every single fucking year on the dot. They would put a new game out starting from whenever the first game came out, like in 2009, 2010, something like that, right on the cusp of games kind of hitting that version of mainstream success where it's like, oh no, oh no, the normal people are paying attention now. Shit, they're ruining it. Kind of a bad trend to jump in on, but like I said, like those games were really fun and really unique for quite a while there. But they very gradually over time started losing their way, and then it just took like a hard left turn at Suckville, where it's like, oh, making these games once a year isn't working anymore. Like, because you could kind of see how, and this is a common misconception. Like I've mentioned this before also, but they don't make the games in a year. They make them over like Ubisoft is a fucking massive studio with like 1 billion employees and multiple different sub-studios all over the world, like Ubisoft Montreal, Ubisoft Shanghai, Ubisoft etc., like wherever they're located. And they have different teams at different Ubisoft studios working on Assassin's Creed games all at the same time, and they finish one and release it, and like Assassin's Creed 3 was being made over the course of like 3 years, while Brotherhood and Revelations were released during that time period. So it's not like they're just making each game within the span of a year. That's fucking ridiculous. I remember this one Angry Joe video where he was interviewing some Ubisoft person about Assassin's Creed 4, which was the pirate one, and he was like, oh, did you guys decide to put pirate ship things in your game because you heard about that Pirates of the Caribbean game get canceled? And you can kind of see the person he's interviewing like really bite her tongue and hold back the urge to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not how games work. You can't just throw that in there in less than a couple months because of some other game we heard about existing. How the fuck do you think games work, you goddamn idiot? They were working on Assassin's Creed 4 for fucking years. And the ship stuff in that game was just iteration on the ship-based combat they were working on in Assassin's Creed 3, but didn't have time to fully flesh out because they had to release that fucking game, so they held on to that idea and expanded on it and worked on it before Assassin's Creed 3 had even come out. But anyway. So, like, Assassin's Creed is one of those series that, like, was a defining series of the old gen. And now that it's in the new gen, it really struggled to find its footing. Like, Unity was a massive train wreck, and Syndicate was a marginal improvement, but it sold like garbage because of how bad Unity was. And that was always the funny thing, because whenever a series gets released annually, it very quickly gets oversaturated, and very quickly people get fucking sick of it. That's a big part of the reason why Sonic got so much hate for a while. Part of the reason. For a while, as in before 2015 when Sonic Dreams Collection came out, and that's really when the meme machine hit full bore. But anyway, like, whenever a game has an annual release schedule, that's when people are like, okay, we're fucking sick of this shit. Familiarity breeds contempt. If you give people too much of something too frequently, they're going to, like, start pulling back. So for a while there, people were like, hey, are you, like, how long are you gonna be releasing Assassin's Creed games every single year? Because at that point, people were like, okay, you're releasing Assassin's Creed game every single year. Like, how much longer are you gonna do this? And Ubisoft's like, as long as people keep buying. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? The most obvious business decision, if it's making money, then keep doing it. Why would you stop, you fucking idiot? And I, of course, was going, oh man, they're releasing an Assassin's Creed game every single year. Every single year I get a new Assassin's Creed game. That's awesome. I don't understand this internet cynicism bullshit of complaining about getting a fucking new release of a good release of a good series every single year. But that being said, like like I mentioned in the Origins video, and I did plan on expanding on it because I realized that if you don't know anything about Assassin's Creed, so much of what I'm talking about in that video is just completely incomprehensible. Like, if you have no idea about the first thing about the Assassin's Creed game, it's like, Abstergo, what the fuck? And then, like, I talk about the ending of Assassin's Creed 3, and just, what, Juno? What the fuck's going on? The world got ended? What? So I did kind of, like, thinking about that, I wanted to do, like, a follow-up where I'm talking about, trying to explain the plot of Assassin's Creed, because that's one of those really fun, like, explain the plot of Lost to someone who has never seen Lost things, and, like, get a little bit more into what I talked about in that video, where I'm like, they intended to end the franchise at Assassin's Creed 3. But it just, like, it became too successful, and they had to change their plans while they were doing it. Like, they had to, like, reshuffle things around in the middle of still trying to get it all in order. And I stand by that. I stand by that very strongly, that you can see the stitches where the original ending of the franchise of Assassin's Creed 3 was, and where they had to just start ripping that game apart in order to justify continuing going forward with the series. But, like, what's really funny is Assassin's Creed is one of those game series where it started out being really, really simple and very, very quickly starts getting overcomplicated. There's this trend. I don't really have a name for it. I don't know if anyone else has a name for it, but there's this thing where the original entry in the series, like, they make the first game, and it's not perfect, it's kind of flawed, but it's like, bam, you fucking nailed it. There's something to this. There's something to what you made here that's like, you got it. You hooked the fish. You nailed it with this. And then they make the second game, and it's technically an improvement. They technically fix everything that was technically wrong with the first game. But it's just a little bit less, like, I don't even know what the word is, like, less charming. It's a little bit less auteur. It feels a little bit more sandpapered down to smooth out the edges, and with that, you necessarily lose a little something. And again, I don't, like, it's a very vague thing, but I'm sure even you can, like, anyone can think of examples of that. Anyone can think of an example of, wow, that first game was really rough, but it was really special, and that second game was better, but it was a little bit less special. And that's sort of what happened with Assassin's Creed 1 versus Assassin's Creed 2, where Assassin's Creed 1 is a really rough experience, and I remember when it first came out, it was kind of polarizing. People were like, very firm, hard, either like, this is the greatest, but it's not perfect, or this game completely sucks garbage, and anyone who likes it is dumb. And then that's why Assassin's Creed 2 came out. That was such a big deal, because people were like, boom, like, Assassin's Creed 2 was where the series, like, fucking, like, you've arrived. You know, like, it fixed everything gameplay-wise. The plot, like, really, like, kicked the door in and was like, "Surprise, motherfucker! You thought it was just gonna be simple, but nah, son, we're really stepping up here." But it was a little bit less special. It was a little bit less, there was something about that first game that the second game just like this side of the bullseye, a little bit. And honestly, because of that feeling of, just a little bit, like, not what the first game was, and hasn't quite become what the rest of the franchise will be, that, for me, I would actually rank Assassin's Creed 2 pretty low on the scale in terms of a whole complete package. But in terms of, like, man, you guys made a fucking sequel, Assassin's Creed 2 really, like, stepped it up. And that's when people really started paying attention to the series, because the first game attracted, I feel like, a particular group of people, which I think was people who missed Prince of Persia. People who are like, man, I do sure miss me that Prince of Persia. Oh, hey, the guys who made Prince of Persia made this new game. And it's like set in this like fictional history, like alternate history kind of thing, and the Third Crusades. That's really interesting. What's with that weird computer glitch at the end of the trailer? Whatever. Like, you're playing as an assassin, and you have to like track down these real life historical figures in the Third Crusade who actually died in that point in history, and it's like a fictionalized version of how those actual historical figures died. That's really interesting. Huh. And that's why, again, it was such a surprise. You turn on that game, and you think, like, it's just going to be like a Prince of Persia style historical fiction kind of thing. And you turn it on, and like the first thing that happens is you're dropped in this weird, glitchy computer space of weird bullshit that doesn't make sense. And it's, and then like you hear these voices talking where it's like, ah, shit, the program ain't working or whatever. And then like the screen transitions, and boom, you're in modern day fucking, like you're in a fucking like weird evil version of Apple's building, and you're some guy who's been strapped into this machine being overseen by two scientists. And it's like, what? And you walk around and it's like you're in a skyscraper, and like it's just modern day, which at the time was like 2009, 2010. Or actually, no, I think it was near future. I think they were really banking on the 2012 thing. That remember when everyone was freaking out about 2012? Assassin's Creed was totally banking on the 2012 thing. I think the original game took place in 2011, and it was building up to 2012. I definitely remember that now. Again, that's another big reason why I feel like it was supposed to end at Assassin's Creed 3, because the Mayan calendar, 2012, that's when the world's gonna end. That's what the plot was building up to all this time. So yeah, in the first game, I do believe it took place in 2011, almost about to become 2012. And it's just regular modern day America. Like, the location doesn't really matter. It's the modern day, and you're like, what? And you're playing as this fucking dopey-ass motherfucker that no one likes, Desmond Miles. And you've been kidnapped by Abstergo, which is like evil Apple, it's like that kind of corporate culture, like Steve Jobs-esque modern technology industry corporation, right? And it's like fucking, I'm going to explain some backstory now, because this is stuff that the first game doesn't really get into, but gets retconned in later, is, like, Desmond Miles grew up in some assassin camp. Because I'll explain this, but a big part of the first game is this revelation that happens where in the Third Crusade there really was a group called the Hashashin, like the Assassins. And they really were led by a guy named Al-Mualim. And they really did, like, take part in the Third Crusade and took action against Richard the Lionheart during the Third Crusade. And a big revelation that happens kind of at the end of that game or at the beginning of Assassin's Creed 2 is no, the Hashashin and the Knights Templar is just that point in history's latest version of these two groups that have existed since apparently Assassin's Creed Origins. But again, like Assassin's Creed 2 retconned a lot of stuff retroactively into the like lore of the series. Like all of the collectibles, most of the collectibles in Assassin's Creed 2 or Brotherhood were like, here's a lot of fucking backstory about what the Assassins and the Templar Order are, and about like the first civilization and all that shit. So, like, you don't learn anything about Desmond Miles in the first game, but, like, they later retcon in the fact that he grew up as part of what the modern-day assassins are, and he was like, fuck this, and, like, escaped, because they're, like, a crazy, weird, dogmatic murder cult, and he's like, fuck that shit, in, like, an act of youthful rebellion, he, like, runs away from home, literally. And in the in his new life, living just as a normal day-to-day, like he's living as a bartender in some shitty city, Abstergo fucking kidnaps him and takes him away to start digging through his genetic memories. Because the entire conceit of the series is there's this machine called the Animus, and the great name, by the way, the Animus, which is supposed to like dive into your genetic memory, because the idea of the series, and again this is something that very quickly gets fucking done away with, because again they had to throw out half of what the series was in order to keep it going after the third game. But in the original game, the way Warren Vidic explains it, and Warren Vidic is like the evil scientist guy, like there's a real good cop bad cop thing going on between Lucy and Warren Vidic. I'm like so amazed I remember these names, by the way. It's been so long. I think it was Lucy Stillman or something like that, and Warren Vidic. And Lucy Stillman's like the personable, helpful kind of figure who's like, look dude, I know it's a bad situation, but you gotta cooperate, and it'll make it easier on all of us. And Warren Vidic's like the fucking, just fucking put him in a coma and dig through his fucking memories like that. Fuck him, right? Like, Lucy hates you so much. And the way Warren Vidic explains the Animus is, you know how, like, a bird just instinctively knows how to migrate? That is your genetic memory. Like, instinct. Like, there are some things that animals just know innately without needing to be taught, without needing to be learned how it works. They just know to do it. And he explains, like, that's your genetic memory. The memories of your ancestors that have resulted in the evolutionary course of your species. And there's just, like it's sort of like, the way you can explain it with humans is like, you know, some people are just naturally really good at basketball. Some people are just naturally pretty artistically inclined. Some people are naturally really smart. That's genetic memory. Like, in a weird fucked up way, it's sort of like eugenics. Like, if your ancestors were really good at this skill, then you are probably gonna be really good at that, like, directive in life also. And so the fiction comes in where, like, that's debatable science, and then the science fiction comes in where it's like the Animus is used to dive into your genetic memories so that we can, like, witness fiction's always obsessed with this thing where you can like make memories like an actual thing that you can walk through. And the Animus takes the memories of your ancestors that are coded into your DNA and is reading the actual vivid representation of the memories that that ancestor went through. So it's not time travel, but they're taking like, okay, your ancestor at this point down in your family tree was this assassin who lived in during the Third Crusade, and he witnessed all this shit. And the reason they kidnapped fucking Desmond is because Altair, which is the character you play as in the Third Crusade, saw a map, and the map has like locations on it that they in the modern day Abstergo wants to find out what those locations are. And no other version of that map exists except for the memory that the genetic memory of Altair seeing that map. So they want to see what the map is. The only version of that map in existence is the one that exists in Desmond Miles' genetic memory, so, because his ancestor saw it. So they kidnap Desmond Miles and throw him in the Animus and be like, okay, let's try and get to that specific memory so we can see the map. And the reason the game happens is you can't just jump into that specific memory because it was a really traumatizing event, and Desmond isn't synced up with his ancestor. So they have to go through the events of the game in order to properly sync up Desmond's mind with Altair's memories. That's the, like, explanation for it. And again, same thing happens in Assassin's Creed 2, which is, here's the memory we want to see, but we can't just shoot in and automatically get it. We have to go through the process in order to get you acclimated to this historical individual's memories, so that we have to get to those memories naturally along the way. But that is the reason we're doing this in the first place. Like, from the beginning, there's a goal in mind for what you're looking for while doing this. And Desmond's an unwilling participant, but he's like, well, they're gonna put me into a weird chemical coma and just dig through the memories with a fucking scalpel, and it's gonna leave me brain damage, so might as well go along with it. And the original Assassin's Creed, and the sequels until it just completely got rid of it, had like this interesting little control system where the 4 buttons related to the 4 body parts. So like the Y button was your head. So what does the Y button do? It lets you use Eagle Vision, which was kind of a rudimentary version of detective vision from the Batman games, funnily enough. And your left, and the X button on like a Xbox controller, like the left button controlled your left hand, and the left hand had like the hidden blade on it, so the hidden blade button you would use to assassinate people. That's the button you would use to assassinate people. And then the B button was your right hand, which did like the grabbing motion, so you would grab someone and throw them, or like drop down. It didn't really make sense at that point. And then the A button was your legs, so your legs is what you would use to like run and jump around all over the place. And you would hold down the R button, and that would be like, oh, you're in extreme mode now. Like, you're just not pressing it, and you're just passively walking around. You hold down the R button, you're suddenly like, oh, I'm gonna do motherfucking shit, right? And when you take your weapon out, it would have, like, different associations. But that was the idea. It was sort of like this notion of each button associates to a different limb. And again, they would slowly do away with that, but that was the idea in the original game. And a lot of people don't like Altair, but I like Altair because he has an actual character arc. Like, Altair's story is... And again, this is it's based on history. You can look up the actual Hashashin from in the Middle East at that point in history, and there's an actual historical event that gets referenced in the game very early on, which is the big leap of faith moment, where like the leader of the assassins is getting sieged by the Templars, and he's like, my men do not fear death, look, and he points up to like a tower, and he shows them like, here's the dedication my men have to our cause, and they jumped from the tower to their death. That was an actual thing that happened during the actual siege in actual history. You'd be like, yeah, siege us, whatever, we're fine with dying, like, we're not afraid of you. But in the game, you do that moment, and you're actually, like, a leap of faith into a pile of hay, and you're fine. And it's all part of, like, some strategic scheme. So, like, Altair's story is, he's like, he's the big man on campus, and he's got this big swinging dick, and he's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want, because I'm the coolest, baddest G that ever did walk the streets. I'm motherfucking Altair. I'm like the biggest dude. And because of that, he gets so arrogant that he can think, I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want. Like, nothing is true, everything is permitted. I just want to I'll reveal myself to the enemy. I'll kill this innocent guy just because he was in my way. And, like, they've got, like, 3 rules. That's, like, don't kill an innocent, don't betray the Brotherhood, and then a third thing I don't remember. And he just does all of them immediately. And it's like, you fucked up. And, like, he gets punished, and he gets stripped of his rank. And his story is about slowly, climbing back up the corporate ladder, because he's still the same incredibly skilled individual that he was, but the missions he gets sent on is kind of meant to make him more humble, and both in having to go through these obstacles again from a novice rank and privileges, and in dealing with the targets that he has to assassinate and being exposed to their perspectives and beliefs, expanding his mind, he starts slowly, like, becoming more humble and being like, yeah, I was a huge dick. It wasn't cool. I'm sorry. You know, he gains more wisdom and all that shit. And that's why I liked Altair, because he had a clear character arc. He started out in one place, and by the end of the game, he's a different character. Ezio didn't have that, just saying. I don't know why everyone loves fucking Ezio so much. He's a really boring character. He's just superficially very charismatic and charming, but there's, like, no substance to his character. Altair is kind of boring on the surface, but there's, like, depth to his character. He changes. He has his beliefs challenged, and he becomes a different person by the end. There's even one of his targets, he kills him, and the target's like, no, I don't want to die. And Altair's like, why are you fucking so scared? Now you can go to heaven, right? You're a Templar. You're a Knight Templar. You believe in God. You should... I mean, it sucks to die, but like, in theory, you should be okay with it, because now you're gonna go to paradise. And the guy's like, no, dude. You ain't seen what I seen. There's nothing. When you die, that's just it. It's the void, and that shit's scary, dog. And Altair's like, whoa, geez, that guy was like real, like, that's a pretty radical fucking idea to introduce to someone living in the Third Crusade in, like, 1193 or whenever the fuck that was. Like, that's a pretty mind-blowing perspective. And like the whole game is kind of is really based in ideology, in, like, this ideological difference between the assassins and his targets, who all turn out to be Templars. And that's, like, where a lot of retconning starts to come into place, which is, those were 2 real groups that existed. The Assassin and the Knights Templar are both real groups, and so for convenience's sake, we just attribute the titles of the Assassins and the Templars onto them, but these are just the 2 latest, like, names and versions of these groups that have existed all throughout history.
Phone ran out of charge. So that's why all of the games used to start, like, that was the idea behind why the game started out with that little warning at the beginning, where it's like, this game was made by a diverse group of individuals of different ethnicities and cultures and religious beliefs, as, like, kind of a stopgap warning, where it's like, we're not making a statement here. We're not saying all religions are fake, or this culture's whacked out, or, like, we're not trying to be disrespectful. We're just taking the mythology of these religious events and crafting our own story with it. We're not trying to fucking step on anyone's toes. We're just telling the story here. Chill out. Like, that was what that disclaimer was supposed to be. It's like, yeah, we're kind of implying that the Knights Templar were evil and religion's a lie, but we're not, like, it's a story, okay? Chill out. Some of us are Christian. It's like we're not trying to do a thing here, right? Because the slow revelation that kind of gets made throughout, like, the first handful of games, like, a lot in Assassin's Creed 1, and then the rest of it in Assassin's Creed 2, based on the collectibles you get, is, like, all of the, like, religious Christian mythology was kind of completely made up because of these mystical artifacts that existed. That's what the whole game's kind of based around, is they're trying to get this artifact, which is called, like, the Apple of Eden, where, like, that's what they start fighting over at the beginning. And there's this really interesting moment where, like, Al-Mualim, who's, like, the leader of the assassins, who's, like, slapping Altair's dick and being like, you fucked up, is holding out the Apple of Eden to him and being like, don't you fucking see? And Altair's like, no? What? And Al-Mualim's like, shit. But you don't really get the significance of that moment until at the end of the game, because the revelation that gets made is this artifact is can be used to alter people's perceptions and fuck with their brains and cause auditory and visual hallucinations. So the idea is these historical religious figures all throughout history, all throughout all different religions, all throughout the world, have used these artifacts in order to fake miracles. So all of Jesus' miracles, he was just using a piece of Eden and doing some cloak and dagger, smoke and mirrors bullshit, and people thought, oh, he's the son of God. And it's the Apple of Eden is the one they're all fighting over for, like, the first couple of games, but there's a shit ton of different artifacts that all do different things. Like the Shroud, what's the Shroud of? The fake one of Jesus? The Shroud of something? Like, that is a piece of Eden that can be used to bring a dead person back to life. And that's how Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days, is they used the Shroud. And it was a piece of Eden and it brought him back to life. And why are they called the pieces of Eden? Is because the aliens built the pyramids, basically. It's the idea. Not literally, but that's the idea, is originally there were two species on the planet Earth. There was humanity, who were used as a slave race by the second species, who I think might have been aliens. It's kind of like, it's those, like, the ancient people were magic with their advanced technology kind of thing. And again, this, like, you only slowly learn this piecemeal over the course of the first 5 games. This doesn't all get told to you right at once. But, like, originally, there was these two civilizations, and one subjugated the other, and they had a big war. And then this weird apocalyptic event happened, and fucking everyone died. And the only 2 people left were Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve were just the 2 humans who were left over from this big cataclysmic event and war that had happened between humanity and the first civilization, is what they eventually get called. And so, like, all of human history from that point is just, like, the children of the survivors. And all this weird shit that starts happening where they start getting their hands on pieces of Eden, which are just pieces of technology that survived the cataclysmic event. And these are just super advanced technology that's indecipherable for magic that were used by the first civilization in their day-to-day life. So it's literally give cavemen alien fucking technology, and that's what happened. And so all of these like religious events throughout history, not just Christianity, it's all religion, it's all culture all over the world forever, we're using these pieces of Eden. And the original, I don't know if this is canon anymore with Origins, because Origins is doing something with it. But like the first Templar was Cain, and the first assassin was Abel. Or like maybe it's the other way around, but like the Cain killed Abel, and then like from there the two brothers' different ideologies just split and went throughout history and eventually became what we know as today, designated as the Assassins versus the Templars. And the whole dichotomy between them is the Assassins are all about like personal responsibility and individualism, where they're like, nothing is true, everything is permitted. And Ezio, in his like only good moment in the series, explains what that phrase means. Because like for 4 games, people are like, oh, you can just do whatever you want and nothing matters. That's kind of weird and depressing and self-defeatist to the idea of a coherent society. And Ezio explains like, no, you fucking idiot. Like it's not literal, you goddamn morons. It means like nothing is true. The laws and constraints of authority, of society's laws, of religious doctrine, like, none of that is real. It was constructed by people. Human beings set down these rules. They are not absolute. They were invented by people, and you can choose to follow them or not. Like, nothing is true because there is no absolute truth. There's no super divine authority from on high designating things down from the unquestionable heavens saying, this is what is right and this is what is wrong. So, therefore, everything is permitted. But that's not some laissez-faire, like, excuse to just be a fucking murderous, thieving asshole and just do whatever you want. It means you have to take personal responsibility. It means because there is no divine rule set, you can do whatever you want. So therefore, what you choose to do is on you. You are solely responsible for what you decide to do with this absolute freedom. If you choose to enslave yourself to the expectations of society, that's your choice, and you're permitted to do that. You're following your own truth, which is the truth of accepting what you're told is true and willingly going along with it. And that's totally acceptable. Or you can choose to reject it and go your own way. It just means that, like, there literally isn't a God saying, like, you fucking gotta do this. This is what's right, this is what's wrong. You can decide for yourself, for you, what is right and what's wrong. And therefore, you have to take personal responsibility for what you do, the choices you make, and the course your life takes as a result of those choices. It's very existentialist in a good way. And, like, that is the whole notion of what the Assassin's Brotherhood is all about. They're all about personal responsibility and individualism. And the Templars are the other side of that coin, where they're like, no. People cannot be given that responsibility. People suck. Have you seen people? Have you seen the things they will do? They are, like, the Templars are that mentality of, if you give people absolute freedom, they will just destroy themselves. They will murder and rape and feed and pillage and shoot themselves up with heroin and give each other AIDS and eat each other's babies. You can't let people just do whatever they want. They will go crazy, and the fucking species will just be destroyed. It'll turn into fucking Thunderdome up in this bitch. There needs to be guidance. There needs to be structure. There does need to be a group of people deciding what the rules are, and everyone else has to follow those rules. And of course, the Templars naturally think they are the ones who should be in charge, and they are the ones who should decide what the rules are, and everyone else has to do what they say. But that's kind of the thing, is depending on the game, you can kind of see it both ways. Like, obviously the games are always kind of skewed in bias of the assassins. But the entire point of the first game is Altair is getting himself exposed to the ideas of all of his targets turn out to be Templars. So he's being exposed to these notions of, no, dude, people are animals. You have to put up a pen, and there has to be a shepherd. Otherwise, they will go tumbling off a cliff. And he gets exposed to that ideology, and it kind of broadens his perspective. The second game, and all the Ezio games, kind of turned the Templars into these retarded cartoon villains with no real coherent motivation. And that's another reason why I think the second game isn't as strong. It kind of loses some things by just really painting it as black and white and really having villains who are just completely one-dimensional. And not having very good assassins either. It's just really fucking one-dimensional. But you could go as far as, you could stretch it and be like, that's just the old, like, absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is what the Templar ideology risks if you do not temper it. But then it also does the same thing with the assassins, where it's like, one of the support characters in the third game is like, sometimes I feel like we don't even have an ideology anymore for ourselves. Sometimes it feels like we're just killing Templars because that's what we do. There's no higher purpose to it anymore. We're just this insane murder cult who thinks we have the right to decide who lives and dies, and all we do all day is kill Templars because we kill Templars, and that's it. Like, because that's their whole thing, is all of the game's conceits are the Templars are the corrupt authority, and the assassins are the scrappy underdog, displacing them from power and freeing the people. But then, what do the assassins do when the Templars are all gone and now the assassins are in charge? Now the people who preach free will and individualism are the authority. What happens there? Now you have to, and again, when they are assassins, the entire raison d'etre of their organization is killing people. So what do you do when there's no more people to kill, right? How do you validate your existence? You kind of become like, this is gonna be like an inflammatory thing to say, you kind of become like feminism, where, oh shit, you got what you wanted, what now? Make up shit to claim that you want so that you can just continue to exist. Eventually, every, activist group, when they achieve their goals, as they probably inevitably will, if they don't peter out, eventually, all they care about is continuing their own existence. The group, the goal of the group suddenly becomes to maintain the existence of the group. And when your group is based around slaying the dragon, and now you've slain the dragon, you gotta find a new dragon to slay, otherwise there's no reason to continue existing. So that's like the other side of the coin, where this is what can happen to the assassin's ideology if it's allowed to kind of go out of control and be untempered as well. And I remember, there was an internet theory for a while, there was there should be a third group who their only job is to maintain balance. Whenever the Templars get too much control in an area and start getting corrupt, to help out the assassins to even things out. Whenever the assassins become too powerful, help out the Templars and help even things out. That's not true, but that is an interesting idea, where too much power in either direction does ultimately end up going a bad way. And you can kind of see the arguments of both sides. That was the entire point of Assassin's Creed 3, where, like, all of the villains had really good arguments. But anyway, and like, anyway, so that's the idea of the Assassins versus the Templars. And again, it's just given a different name throughout all of history. Until you get to the modern day where there's the Assassins and Abstergo are the Templars. The Templars, that ideology, now takes the form of the company Abstergo, which is like, again, supposed to be generic 2010s era corporate technology conglomerate, right? And their goal is complete domination of the planet, and the Assassin's goal is kind of just to stop them at any given time, right? So eventually they get to the memory that they wanted from Altair. And throughout the entire game, like, when you assassinate a target, you go back to modern day and you interact as Desmond with your cage. You start slowly pushing at the walls of your cage to try and see how far you can get away with. Like, you steal a security pen from Warren Vidic so that you can sneak out of your room after the session with the Animus is over and, like, try and figure things out. Like, you can read emails and get, again, all of this stuff I explained to you is shit that is fed to you piecemeal through optional collectibles throughout the series. And there's these subtle hints that Lucy is also an assassin because she'll give you this, which is like the sign of it. She'll be like, yeah, it's all good, bro. Because one of the things with the assassins is in order to use the trademark hidden blade, you gotta cut off your ring finger, which is symbolic of, like, now you're married to the cause, motherfucker, right? And as a practical thing, because of the way the hidden blade is designed, you'll fucking gore your finger off. And that's actually something that happens in Assassin's Creed Origins, and I was really curious about that, because you get the hidden blade after the point where I finished with that video. So when you get the hidden blade, like, he just puts it on, and it's just some cool knife that shoots out, because those have existed. And, like, he's kind of going like, whoa, cool. And I'm like, so how did the cut your finger off thing happen? Because that's, like, a big deal symbolically with the assassins. So how did that happen? And at one point, Bayek uses his hidden blade to kill a motherfucker, and he did it at an awkward angle. Like, he didn't really have the freeform movement to get his fingers out of the way. So he uses the hidden blade and just slices his finger off with the blade as it's killing the guy. And it's like, oh, that's how it got started. Shit, that's awesome. And so, like, that's the symbol of the assassins, because you gotta cut off your ring finger to show your dedication to the cause. And there's this event where the assassins find out that Desmond's being held and try and break into Abstergo to save him, and it's kind of implied they succeed because Vidic puts him on the phone and is like, haha, listen, we're killing your dudes. They're in our base, but we're killing your dudes. And the security team's like, yo, we're killing these motherfuckers. And then after the firefight ends, a different voice is talking, so you're like, oh, did he? That was such a cool thing, because there was so much speculation after the end of the first game. Not as much as the second game, but there was a lot, because at the end of the game, what happens is it turns out Amralim was a Templar the whole time, and he kind of became the leader of the assassins for his own ends. And that's something that happens a lot with the series, is there's a lot of crossing over. There's a lot of assassins who become Templars, and there's not actually as many Templars who become assassins when you think about it. I think that actually gets mentioned. Once or twice, where in one game or another, where it's like, we have seen assassins become Templars. We have never ever seen a Templar become an assassin. Yeah, that does happen a few times. Like, that was the entire conceit around Assassin's Creed Rogue. But anyway, like, Al-Mualim was a Templar and became an assassin and rose to the ranks and became the leader, but he was a Templar the whole time. He was just a double agent manipulating the Hashashin for his own ends, basically using Altair to kill off all of his bros so that he's the guy in charge of the Templars and he rules the assassins so he can just do whatever the fuck he wants, especially since he has the Piece of Eden. And it can just take total control. And the final boss fight is Altair kills Al-Mualim. And it's very symbolic, like killing of the father figure, in order to, like, destroy the holy relic that he was using to manipulate and control people. And so Altair's story ends with him going up to the Piece of Eden as it's displaying this map of the globe with little blip blip points on the globe where it's like, here's where the other pieces of Eden are, basically. And so Altair is walking up to the map and to the Piece of Eden, and Amalim's like, go ahead, destroy it. Free humanity of its influence. Just destroy it, go ahead. And Altair's like the ending of 2001 A Space Odyssey, where it's like, whoa, I can't do it. Like, I can't. It's too strong. The temptation is too strong. He can't destroy the Piece of Eden. And Amalim's like, ha 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 ha, fuck you. Yeah, you know what it's like. Like, who can resist, right? Literally the apple of knowledge, the apple of Eden, with all of the fruits of wisdom and the temptation of humanity. Very symbolic. But anyway, like, all Warren Vidic wanted was those blips on the map in that memory. So immediately you get pulled out, and you don't know what happens, and it's like, what the fuck? And Warren Vidic's on the phone, it's like, yeah, we know where they are. Go to the places. Go to the fucking places. Because you find out that their plan is to take an Apple of Eden, launch it on a satellite, and, like, take over the entire planet with the powers of the Apple of Eden. That kind of gets fucking derailed later on when the whole, oh shit, the world's gonna end 2012 plot happens. But that's the reason, like, that works as the reason they kidnap Desmond, which kicks off the events of the series. And so then they're like, haha, fuck you, Desmond, bye. And Desmond's like, what's gonna happen to me? And Lisa's like, chill out. We got this, right? So then they walk out of the room, and Desmond's alone in the room with the Animus. And then the button for Eagle Vision comes up. And it's like, what? Because Desmond has just been walking around. Like, you can't do anything with Desmond. He's just a normal guy walking around. And Altair is the one who has Eagle Vision. So Eagle Vision shows up when you're playing as Desmond. It's like, what? And you press it, and you see all of this shit. And it's like, what? So you can, the game's over, but you can continue walking around in that room. You can go into the Animus and replay, like, chapters of the game however much you want. But the real thing people did was people walked around the room and looked at all of the shit that was written on the walls through Eagle Vision and trying to figure it out. Because again, all this shit I'm explaining to you, was fed to you piecemeal through optional shit and inspired a lot of discussion. And there was a lot of speculation about what it could fucking mean. And then the second game happens, and again, it was a huge improvement, both in terms of story delivery and gameplay. But it was just a little bit on the weaker side because the character story and the ideological themes just weren't there as strong. And this is a big thing that someone wrote an article about, and it kind of like opened my eyes up to it. Is in Assassin's Creed 1, you don't have a health gauge. You have a sync meter, which is how much your actions are synchronized with the memories of Altair. So every time you do something that isn't what Altair did in his genetic memory, you lose sync. So every time you kill an innocent person, you lose sync because he didn't do that. So you're not synchronized with his memories. If you fall down, you lose sync because he didn't fall down. He didn't fuck up his parkour. You fucked up, you're not synchronized. And whenever you get hit by a sword, you lose sync. Because back in the Third Crusade, if you get fucking decked by a sword, that's not something you can just walk off. You can't justify that. If you get whaled by a sword, you're fucking, like, not gonna be okay. So guess what? Altair doesn't remember getting hit by a sword because he didn't fucking get hit by a sword. You're not synchronized with his memories. Altair was a motherfucking badass G who didn't get fucking hit, who didn't get spotted, who didn't fuck up his parkour. He was a bro, and if you can't live up to that ideal, then you're gonna lose synchronization because that's just how cool Altair fucking was. Then, in Assassin's Creed 2, you just get a health bar. You just get a regular-ass health bar. If you get hit, you lose damage, and you have to buy a healing item and drink a magic healing potion that magically regenerates your lost health. And if you fall down and fuck up in your parkour, Ezio hurt his leg from falling down, so you lose health. And the only time, like, desynchronization comes up is when you get a game over. You desynced. Like, you drowned, or you stabbed a bitch. And you shouldn't have stabbed that bitch, so you desynced. But now there's a health meter. So, canonically, Ezio is a motherfucking hardcore badass who never got hit, never got spotted, never fucked up once. Ezio, no. He had a health meter. He did get hit. He remembers getting damaged. He remembers fucking up. He remembers going to the doctor to buy some health potions. Ezio ain't as cool. Ezio ain't as cool as Altair. But he's, like, superficially very suave. Like, he has that dashing rogue kind of personality to him that's just all the rage. Makes you cream your panties. So everyone loves Ezio. He's, like, super overrated. I'm not into it. I'm not into the Ezio, quite frankly. Like, whatever, but Altair had a character arc. There was substance there. Ezio, he doesn't even get a character arc. His whole story is a revenge story. He's like, they killed my family, so I'm going to kill them. And he discovers the existence, because, like, that's the big revelation of Ezio's story is, like, the Hashashin and the Knights Templar existed in the Third Crusade. So the job of Assassin's Creed 2 is to validate why the Assassins and the Templars still exist when the Hashashin and the Knights Templar don't exist anymore. So they just go, yeah, like, the dudes you're killing who killed your family, your dad was an assassin, and the dudes who killed your family are Templars. So for most of the fucking game, he's not even an assassin. He finds his dad's clothes, and he just wears his dad's clothes, and he's running around dressed up as an assassin, killing Templars, but he's not a capital A assassin. And he's just killing these guys because he thinks they had something to do with the guy who killed his family. It's just not for me, bruh. Like, I'm super not engaged by a generic revenge, you killed my family, prepare to die narrative like that. With a very shallow, superficial main character who doesn't undergo any character growth. He pretty much ends as the same character he was in the beginning. There's a really trite, stupid character development where he starts out as this brash, boisterous young man, and by the end of the game, he's like, oh no, like, I'm not going to kill you and take my revenge after all. And it's so dumb. Like, the main villain turns out to be Pope Borgia. And he's like, I'm going to kill you, Pope Borgia. But no, I'm not going to kill you, Pope Borgia, because I'm going to be the bigger man. And I'm going to give mercy to you. which is always the stupidest fucking thing. You kill your way up the ladder of bad guys. You have killed literally everyone else in the game. You have killed nameless soldiers who were just doing their job and didn't have anything to do with anything. They're just paid guards who are paid to keep the peace, and you slaughter them en masse. They committed no crime. Their only crime was being in your way. Now they're never going to go home to their family. Their children have been orphaned. Their wives have been widowed because they were in your way. But then you get to the fucking guy who killed your family, who was in charge of all the bullshit that was going on throughout the series, and you get to him and you're like, nah, I will spare you, because I will not sink down to your level. I will not reduce myself to fuck you, Ezio. Ezio's the worst character. I don't know why people like him. Yes, I do, because they're idiots. The end. But, the, other primary thing that happens in Assassin's Creed 2 is, like, that game starts and Lucy runs into the room covered in blood being like, we gotta fucking go, dude, we gotta go now. Desmond's like, what the fuck's going on? So the beginning of that game is breaking out of Abstergo and getting out of that fucking room at last. And going through Abstergo and seeing, like, this room that's just a sea of other animuses, which was setting up for the multiplayer, which is really cool, because the multiplayer wasn't in Assassin's Creed 2, but they were setting that up by showing all of these animuses in this room, and it's like, what? And you escape, and you join up with this small group of assassins, modern-day assassins, and it's like, this, like 2 other persons, Lucy and Desmond. And now the plot is, yo, we gotta find this memory in one of your ancestors. And that's why Desmond's such a big deal, is because both of his family tree had, like, important assassins in it. So, like, on his father's side was these assassins, and on his mother's side were these assassins. And it's implied, like, the reason eagle vision is a thing is because that's a holdover from the first civilization from Adam and Eve. So literally Desmond and all of his ancestors are a direct descendant of Adam and Eve. And the reason Desmond is like the chosen one is because both of his parents were descendants of Adam and Eve somewhere up along the ancestral tree. So like Altair, Ezio, Connor were descendants of Adam and Eve, but Desmond's important because both of his parents were descendants of Adam and Eve, and that's why he's the chosen one. And again, it's why the series was supposed to end at Assassin's Creed 3. So, they're like, yo, your other assassin ancestor, Ezio, he saw some shit, and we want to see what that shit was. So, like, he saw something, and that's important for us, so we want you to dive through his memories. And the reason that he could use Eagle Vision at the end of the first game was because of the bleeding effect. And the bleeding effect is where, like, kind of you're going insane. Like, that's what happened with all the other test subjects before Desmond. Desmond's Subject 17, and all the test subjects before Desmond went fucking nuts because they couldn't disassociate reality from their mind, because that's what the lore is supposed to be, is you're literally living as that person. Like, one of the best pieces of collectibles in Assassin's Creed, the series, is in Assassin's Creed 4, I think, where, like, there's an interview with the guy who his ancestor was, I forget her name, the chick from the PS Vita game. The chick from, like the black French chick from the PlayStation Vita game. I'm gonna have to look this up, hold on. Assassin's Creed Liberation and Aveline. So the guy who, like, went in the Animus and his ancestor was Aveline, he had, like, an interview talking about it. And it was like that's the best piece of lore, of collectible in the entire series. It was really interesting and cool. So the bleeding effect is you have, like, residual leftover memories and emotions of the ancestor altering your perspective of the modern day. So, like, you'd have characters waking up and being like, whoa, like I was doing this, and like you like the other characters kind of talk them down, be like, no, 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 you're just like still like you're not woken up yet, right? It takes a little bit to wake up, and it was real. You did experience those memories, so it's hard to disassociate. And that's why early on, early versions of the Animus, people would just go fucking crazy because they couldn't disassociate reality from the genetic memory that they had been experiencing. But the upside is the bleeding effect gives you the skills of your ancestor. So the idea is by playing as Ezio and experiencing his genetic memories, Desmond is getting the skill set of his ancestor. So, like, instead of just getting the bleeding effect as the result of dealing with Ezio of Altair so much, now the assassin's version of the Animus is specifically designed to be like, we need to train you, Desmond Miles, to be a badass, G-ass, fucking bro-ass dude right now. We do not have the time of years of training, so we're just gonna let you play as Ezio, and you will get those skills residually by playing as him. So, again, there's this very slow build-up of Desmond Miles as the chosen one, where in Assassin's Creed 2 and in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you're running around parkouring as Desmond using the same skills as Ezio, and the end of Assassin's Creed 2 is Abstergo busts into the hideout and Desmond gets his hidden blade, and you do combat with Abstergo soldiers and you fight them, and they're using little batons because you gotta keep the same combat style. So they're coming at you, and you use the actual combat abilities Ezio used to kill these guys as Desmond Miles. Like, he has completed the transition. He has become an assassin. But the other big thing that happens is at the end of Ezio's story, they get to the memory that they wanted to get to, and Ezio lets the Pope go because he's a cunt, and he goes into this room, and the room is the whole reason that Borgia tried to become the Pope in the first place. And he's like, there's some fucking first civilization shit in there, and I want to know what it is, so I'm going to open it up and get in there. And so Ezio beats him up, gets in there, and he's like, okay, there's going to be some first civilization shit in here, and I've got to make sure the Templars don't get it. So he goes into that room, and there's just it's a fucking hologram. And it's like, what? And it's like Juno, the Greek god. And she's like, who the fuck are you? She's looking down at Ezio, and it's like, fuck you, I don't give a shit about you. And then she looks at the camera and addresses the fourth wall and says, yo, Desmond, you gotta go do a thing, bro, because shit's gonna happen. Like, she gives Desmond Miles the message while Ezio is literally standing there going, what is going on? And it's like, what? There's this hologram of Juno talking to the player, being like, some shit's gonna go down, son. Shit's gonna go fucking down. And you're like, what's happening? So, if you think the ending of the first game caused some fucking discussion online, the second game was like, what? What does it mean? What does it mean? And especially since the consumer base of Assassin's Creed 2 was so much wider because it was an actually good game on top of all that. So people got to that and they were like, what the fuck is this series? Like, what are they building up to? Holy shit. And so then you get to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which was my personal favorite for a while, because it wasn't big on 2. Revelations fucking sucked ass. Revelations was just straight up bad. Period. And so Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was like an expansion pack. That was where when it really started to be like, okay, the next real game in the series is taking too long. Just take the engine of the second game and just incrementally improve on it and put a new story and art assets in there and just shove it out. Just shove it out. Like it was the first real like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was the first real instance of shit, the games are getting too successful. Fuck it up and push it out. Fuck it up and push it out. Because we gotta keep releasing these games yearly because they're so successful, but we're still not done yet, so just it, here's a little bit of the story that was supposed to happen in the third game, put it in Brotherhood. So the big revelation of Brotherhood is like Desmond is still incrementally learning how to become an assassin. And the cool thing is like Ezio's main home base was this villa in Italy, like it was his family villa. And you spent that whole game like buying upgrades to build up the villa and like fix up all the houses and do all this real estate shit and upgrading your mansion and buying all these priceless works of art and shit. And so then in Brotherhood, you go to the villa in modern day, and you can run around the villa in modern day as Desmond and do all of his cool parkour shit and kind of find fun little collectibles. And then you play as Ezio, and the villa gets destroyed and attacked by the Borgias. So it's like, all that hard work, no. You got ruined. So, like, Ezio's, again, I'm just so unengaged by Ezio as a character. I kind of fucking even forget what his story even was in that game. Like, it was a cool, like, gameplay-wise, it was a really fun system. Like Brotherhood was kind of the gameplay peak for a little while there, but I literally don't even fucking remember what his story in that game even goddamn was. Like, he kills the Pope. What's the big thing that happens? I literally fucking forget. Like, it's not like, again, that it feels like everything that happens with Ezio is just, like, shit that they invented as an excuse to have a majority of gameplay. And, like, it had a bunch of cool collectibles where you would, like, do little slide puzzles and find out all these cool, interesting pieces of lore. Like, the Tuskegee incident was the assassins being like, hey, Edison, blow some shit up. Not Edison, Tesla. Hey, Tesla, blow some shit up because Edison is a Templar. And so the Tuskegee incident. And it was like, there was a lot of really cool fucking collectibles. And I believe, no, Assassin's Creed 2 was the one that had, like, the video clips, where it was like string these video clips together and it showed you this video of Adam and Eve before the cataclysm. Again, I'm explaining a lot of stuff to you like just up front that was fed to you piecemeal, game by game, optional collectibles. So Assassin's Creed Brotherhood had a lot of fun optional collectibles. And you would find out about Subject 16, who was like the one before Desmond. And it was like always building up to, like, this is gonna matter in the next game, right? Like, here, like, we've answered one question and given you 5 new questions, and the next game will answer those questions. That's what the series did for a long time there, with the first 5 games. So like, again, I literally flat out don't remember what Ezio's story fucking was. I literally don't fucking remember how his story ended. It can't have been important. Like, they find out, go to this place, and it has the Apple of Eden there. And there was a lot of interesting, like, character dynamics being it. Like, again, all of the story of importance in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was Desmond's story, which leads me to believe this was going to be part of Assassin's Creed 3, but they just ripped it out and put it in Brotherhood as a stopgap. And it slowly develops over the course of the game. where like Desmond's slowly becoming a better assassin, but there's like friction in the little group dynamic they have, and there's some intrigue where like Desmond uses his eagle vision, and there's some fucking footsteps that are only used by enemy footsteps to show their patrol path leading outside, and then they stop, and then they go back inside, and it's like, what? Who is here? And so the end of the game is, I believe you go to either the Vatican or the Colosseum in Rome. One of those. And you do this like big long parkour platforming section to get to the Apple of Eden that's hidden there. Like that was one of the locations that was in that big map. Like they were like, okay, Abstergo's gonna go for that one. So we gotta find out where that one is and get to it and stop them. Because, oh, that's fucking... That was not Revelations, no. Yeah, Ezio's big narrative climax was he gets the Apple of Eden, and you can do the shit that Al-Mualim could do at the end of Assassin's Creed 1, where Ezio is the Grand Master of the Assassin Order, and he's walking around with the Apple of Eden, just waving that shit around and making dudes kill themselves, because the apple is just that fucking strong and powerful. And he uses it to kill the Pope, Borgia, and then he, like, hides the apple. He doesn't just toss it the fuck overboard for some fucking reason. Like, he hides the apple because humanity is not ready, and I've hidden it away so good and so well that no one except another assassin would be able to find it, and we're cool guys, so they're not gonna come look for it, right? But Abstergo in the modern days, like, zeroing in on that location, so because Ezio knows where it was and then where he put it, Ezio knows where it is, and Abstergo is going to where it used to be before Ezio got his hands on it, so Desmond and crew go to where Ezio hid it. And they get the Apple of Eden, and Desmond picks up the Apple of Eden, and some other bitch who ain't Juno starts talking to him, and I forget, like, it's like Artemis or something like that? Assassins... Yeah, Juno is the evil one. So, who was the first one? At the end of Assassin's Creed 2, it wasn't Juno, it was some other chick. Minerva. So at the end of Assassin's Creed 2, Minerva shows up and is like, yo, Desmond. And then at the end of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, he picks up the apple, and Juno is like, oh, what the fuck? You guys are fucking it up. God damn it, you're not gonna be able to do the thing. Like, the way they talk to the characters is so funny, where, like, they are all knowing and know what's gonna happen. And so Juno's like, God damn it, like, we can't let... Okay, hold on, bro. You're fucking it up. Let me fix this for you. And Desmond loses control of his body, and, like, you're fighting against it with the controls, and it's not working. And Desmond, being possessed by Juno via the Apple of Eden, walks up to Lucy Stillman and fucking assassinates her. Stabs her with a hidden blade. She's dead. Desmond falls unconscious. End of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. What? So, not quite at, like... After you open Pandora's box, which was the ending of Assassin's Creed 2, where Minerva shows up, it becomes less special. So, like, just by necessity of, yeah, that already happened, we've already been exposed to the awareness of what the first civilization is, and that these entities exist. So you can't pull the same surprise twice. But it was still a big deal, because some shit happened and a main character fucking died. And for reasons we don't know about. So still, that was a big, like, ending at the time. And then Assassin's Creed Revelations happened, and you were like, what the fuck? This game series is like... Revelations was by far the worst one. In terms of... Shit, Assassin's Creed 3 is not done yet. Just fucking throw this out there to save time. Assassin's Creed Revelations serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. Literally no purpose whatsoever. The only thing Assassin's Creed Revelations does is go, hey, Lucy was a Templar. If you didn't get it, it was really heavily implied up until this point. So all Revelations does is spell it out for you in broad numbers if you didn't get it. Lucy was a Templar the whole time. And she was just being a double agent because that's happened before. We've seen it with Lim. He was working for the Assassins as a double agent for the Templar agenda. Lucy was working for the Assassins being a double agent for the Templars. So that's all Revelations does. Revelations literally a garbage game. You can just throw it in the fucking trash. It doesn't matter. Nothing in Assassin's Creed Revelations matters. It was the biggest, saving time fucking excuse release. Again, that was the first game where it was like, wow, they're really losing control of their handle on this franchise. They're really losing their grip on what this franchise was supposed to be. Where it has really become make a game every year for the sake of having a game every year so that we can make money off this game franchise. And I feel like Revelations was not a failure. Revelations sold units. Assassin's Creed was a very successful and a very lucrative franchise. So Ubisoft sat down and were like, that game sucked, but people still bought it. We can't stop this gravy train. We cannot stop this gravy train now. I know when we started out the franchise here, we made this big idea for what the plot would be. And things change in the process of creating art. As you're writing, the story will sometimes get away from you. Things change. But we did still have an idea of where we were going. We were building up to a point, and that was going to be the end of the franchise. And again, that was a big part of the speculation throughout the series, is remember when we were all excited for Assassin's Creed 3, and it was going to take place in modern day, and you would play as Desmond as a fully realized assassin, assassinating Abstergo individuals in modern day? We were so convinced that was where the series was going. It made so much sense. And I feel like Connor was always going to be a thing. But it really did feel like it was going that way. It felt like they were building, reasonably speaking, knowing what we know now, and based on what we were suspecting back then, I feel like half of the game was going to be Connor, and half of the game was going to be Desmond in the modern day. But, I feel like they must have sat down and had a boardroom meeting and be like, nah, dude, we gotta keep this going. I know that was gonna be the end. I know we were gonna end it at 3. We had a whole story planned out, but can we just leave the door open and just keep making new games? We gotta keep making new games, dude. They're making so much goddamn money. Did you see how much money we fucking made? That game wasn't even good. We literally weren't even trying. That game had no substance to it whatsoever, and it still sold a shit ton of units. We gotta keep making these games. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry because we're making so much goddamn money, but I'm sorry. We're going to have to sacrifice our creative intention and just churn out games. So the third one was the game where it was this is what the series was all building up to. But they had to make a lot of artistic compromises at the same time. So the third game does have that spark of this is what the series was meant to conclude as. We were going to bring the exploration of the ideological conflict full circle. By Assassin's Creed 2, the Templars were cartoon villains, and the Assassins were the good guys. Now bring it full circle, and now the Templars really have a strong argument, and the Assassins kind of look like assholes. You could see the roadmap. You can see the roadmap, but then someone poured coffee on the map, and it's like, shit, this coffee is making us so much goddamn money. We gotta keep making more coffee. What about the roadmap? Throw the roadmap out, just keep making coffee. My metaphors are so good, you guys. But like that's why I feel like Assassin's Creed 3 people dog on it because we were done. I feel like 5 years, every single year, 5 years in a row, there was a new game being pumped out. People were done. People were pretty fucking done. Like the series was so oversaturated. The series was so oversaturated and people were sick of it. And I felt like that was another reason because they had to be like, well, we're gonna release it in 2012 when the whole series is building up to the apocalypse of 2012 in the Mayan calendar, right? That was another reason it probably took so long because like when did the first game come out? Hold on, that's bugging me now. Like I want to say 2008, 2009, 2007. I was right. It's been 10 years. It has literally been 10 years. In November, the Assassin's Creed series will be 10 years old. Shit. Like, I was like, no, it couldn't have been 2007. It couldn't have been 2007, could it? So, first game, 2007, 2, 8, Brotherhood, 9, Revelations, 10, and then 3, 2011. And it was like, it's taking place next year in 2012 when the apocalypse is going to happen. And the game is based around the apocalypse is going to happen. Something's going to happen in 2012. The game takes place in 2012, released in 2011. Oh shit, what's going down, right? So like, people give Assassin's Creed 3 shit because we were done. But to me, I play Assassin's Creed 3 and it's like, this is the last one. This is the last one that had that little bit of creative spark to it. This is the last one where it's like, this is the game the creators wanted to make the whole time. And everything after, they were just churning it out. And like, with that came a lot of freedom. But the third game is the last one where it's like, this is the last real Assassin's Creed game. And after that, the worst part about the franchise was the fact that it was an Assassin's Creed game. Like, with every new game after Assassin's Creed 3, the worst part about this game is the part where it's Assassin's Creed. Like, the worst part about Assassin's Creed 4 is the part where it's Assassin's Creed. The part where it's Black Flag is pretty awesome. But, like, Assassin's Creed 3 was the last one where it's like, there's something here. There's still fucking meat on this goddamn bone. So, like, the plot of Assassin's Creed 3 is, like, Desmond and now his dad, played by Q. It's short for Q. What's his name? Star Trek Q. I've been talking too long. John Delancey. His dad, played by John Delancey, and the two other characters who were completely incidental. And Lucy's fucking dead. She was a Templar. Oh shit. So they go to this cave. The cave needed the Apple of Eden to open it. Like, it was a locked door. So they open it up with the Apple of Eden, go inside, and it's this big structure from the first civilization, and it has to do with the shit that's going down in 2012. So their goal is, okay, your ancestor knows where the key to start this engine up is. That ancestor was the last person who had that artifact. We gotta find that artifact, plug it in, and see what's going on, because shit is gonna go down. Minerva and Juno both told us shit is gonna happen. And also, we have to stop Abstergo from launching their gay satellite. So it's this twofold thing. So that's the plot that Desmond's having to deal with. But then, as you go into the Animus, it was a really fucking cool thing where you're playing as Haytham Kenway. Haytham Kenway, who was this really cool, like, charismatic main character. Not charismatic in the way that Ezio was, where he was completely superficial. Haytham actually had some substance to his character. Like, there was depth there, and he had flaws. Like, he was a real fucking character. And everyone was like, yo, Haytham Kenway is so fucking cool. This is a cool-ass Haytham Kenway right here. So, the first, 2 hours of that game, you're playing as Haytham Kenway. And you're like, who the fuck is this? Because this isn't the character in all the preview material. Like, again, it feels so cool that a game can still do that. It feels so cool that a game can still lie to me and surprise me. Because all of the preview material was Connor, the Native American assassin fighting in the American War of Independence. America, fuck yeah! And he's got an eagle because Eagle Vision, and also America, and it's got the flag behind him. And all the preview videos are Connor running around in the woods because he's a Native American, hunting motherfucking bears and helping George Washington and shit. And so you boot up the game and you're playing as Haytham Kenway, and you're like, what the fuck? Who's Haytham Kenway? This isn't who the game said I would be playing as. He's not the guy on the front of the box. And it's so cool that a game can still lie to me. Because you play as Haytham Kenway, and Haytham's story is he finds that door that they opened at the beginning, and he can't open it because he doesn't have an Apple of Eden. So he's like, okay, fuck it. I can't open that door. Oh well. Like, that was the whole reason you showed up, and now he's like, okay, we're gonna set up our shit here. And throughout Haytham's chapter, he's like recruiting this small band, and you're like, oh, he's getting his allies, his assassin allies, and like you're accruing this supporting cast. And then Haytham's story ends with he's got this protege. He's got like a squire who's helping him out. He's not technically part of the organization, but he's helping out. And Haytham's running around and he's assassinating people, and he uses a goddamn hidden blade. And he's like always talking about our order, and it does a really good job. There's enough implications being dropped that you can kind of catch on, but there's enough it does a really good job of kind of fucking with you, because it genuinely took me for a loop. When at the end of Haytham's chapter, he like pulls his squire in, and he's like, it's time for you to join the order. And so he puts the ring on his finger, and he's like, Charles Lee, you are now a Templar. And it's like, oh, what? We were playing as a Templar the whole time. Haytham was a Templar. All the dudes he was assassinating were assassins. And he's trying to set up the Templar Order. And all of the dudes that he recruited during his chapter are gonna be your targets later in the game when you're playing as Connor. Because now they're the generals of the Templar Order in America. And it's like, oh my god. And Desmond even goes, what? My ancestor was a Templar? What? And the achievement that pops up when you finish Haytham's chapters, how do you like them apples? And it was such a cool moment. Like, that to me, like, say what you want about Assassin's Creed 3. That moment validates the entire game to me. Like, the memory I have of that experience of playing as Haytham and the revelation at the end, which, again, you could see coming. It was really well, like, broadcasted if you knew what to look for. If you go into it looking for it, you can see the hints. And again, like, the entire idea is you couldn't tell that they were Templars because the Assassins and the Templars are so fucking similar. They're a group that has more in common than they don't. They're just separated by this ideological difference that could potentially reach a compromise. And again, that's why I feel like Assassin's Creed 3 was supposed to be the end of the franchise. Because Connor's whole story, Haytham is Connor's dad. Haytham bumps uglies with this Native American woman. It's like They have a good relationship. There's nothing sinister. Like, she's like, you're a cool guy, I'm gonna fuck you. And she gets pregnant, and Connor is the son of a Native American mom and a British dad. And actually, technically, Hatham's dad was Welsh. So Hatham is Welsh and British. So Connor is Welsh, British, Native American, and also like that was always a big theme of the games is uh the main character is like a hybrid of two ethnicities. That was the idea, at least behind Altair, whose one parent was a Christian and one parent was a Muslim. So like he was the union of both cultures. Because back at that point in history, Christianity was a culture. Like that was basically an ethnicity at that point. And Ezio broke that because Ezio's a shitty character and I hate him. But Connor was half one ethnicity and half another ethnicity. That was always a big theme with those original games. Like maybe Ezio's dad was Italian and his mom was some other, like maybe his mom was Sicilian. I don't know. Anyway, or like technically all Italians are the result of the Moors showing up and just raping the shit out of them for so long that they turned black. Like technically that is what Italians are. Is they're Italians and all of the genes from the Moor conquerors who raped them full of the DNA and just fucked up their fucking ethnic heritage for decades, centuries, all until today. There's that great scene from that movie that Christopher Walken's in. I forget what the movie is, but like Christopher Walken is a Sicilian fucking dude, like mafia dude, and so the character has this big rant where he's like, the Sicilians are niggers. Like the Moors came up and just fucked the women for so long that Sicilians became black. So like maybe his dad is Italian and his mom's Sicilian. I don't know. Anyway, getting off track. Point is like Connor is a half-breed baby, and that comes up with conflict of his character, shock and awe, right? Like that game's so good. Like fuck people. Like it explores this really good, like the conflict of being a Native American. Like it's the first game in the series where you're playing as a minority and you're running around the colonies, interacting with all these all these British motherfuckers who are fighting the British and trying to get independence. So you're a Native American character dealing with British assholes, right? So, like, that game doesn't get enough credit, man. That game doesn't get enough credit. But anyway, Connor's whole story is Charles Lee burns down his village and kills his mom. So he goes off to join the assassins in order to get revenge. So it starts out from the same place that Ezio starts out from. He's just a generic one-dimensional character who wants revenge. But over the course of that game, like he's a flawed character and his flaws are acknowledged by the game. And it's like, Connor, you have some issues. And these are not okay things and you have to get over these issues. Like, you have to get the fuck over yourself. And as he's fighting the Templars, just like Altair, he gets exposed to their ideology, and it starts to change his mind. Like, he starts out being that really generic, like, America, like, Native, like, there's that great irony of America is a freedom that was founded on the preaching ideology of freedom and justice for all while owning slaves and while subjugating the Native Americans. So there's that great, like, cognitive dissonance and dichotomy that's being explored. And so for the beginning of the game, like, Connor has this really idealistic mentality, this really overly optimistic, close-minded mentality of no freedom and justice for all, all should be free, and he's fighting the Templars, and their whole raison d'etre is no. People are fucking animals. You need to have the stern fucking stick to keep them in line. You can't just give them fucking carrots all goddamn day, Connor. You gotta have the stick to keep them in line. And again, like, you played as Hatham at the beginning of the game. You didn't realize he was a Templar. You sympathized with this character and with what they did to enact their beliefs. With what they were doing in order to establish their seat of power, which wasn't all that different from what you've been doing as an assassin throughout the series up to this point. Not all that different from what Connor ends up doing as an assassin after that point. So, like, really the only difference is this ideological disagreement of, like, total complete freedom or total complete subjugation. And they just can't reach a compromise. And the cool thing about Connor's character is, over the course of the game and experiencing these individuals of killing the Templars that his father recruited, and actually meeting his father. That was such a cool part. Oh my god, there was this, again, people were sick of the series by this point, so people just didn't appreciate it. But I feel like, in retrospect, this is something that, like, maybe 10 years from now, looking back, people will appreciate a lot more. And there was so much substance to these characters, and there's all these interviews with the voice actors of Hatham and Connor who talk about their characterizations, and there's this entire cut monologue from Connor's voice actor. And by the way, they got actual Native Americans to voice the Native American characters in the game. Although I think they got a Native American of a different tribe from what Connor's tribe in the game was. Because Connor's a Mohawk. Connor is a Mohawk Indian from that tribe. And I think his voice actor is from a different tribe, so they did have to get a voice coach in to be like, nah, you got it. Like, but they did get those voice actors, so when Connor and the other Native American characters are speaking English and then speaking Mohawkian, the language of the Mohawk people, it is the same voice actor. And there was this great moment at the beginning of the game where Hatham first meets Connor's mom, and he's chasing after her, and he's like he starts talking like in that stereotypical way, like, you no take candle, you speak English, like, how do you take me to place? And then Connor's mom's like, why the fuck are you talking like that, you weird ass piece of shit? What do you want? And he's like, oh, okay, because of course the Native Americans know English at that point. The fucking it had been colonized for fucking decades, hundreds of years. Like, you're full of shit. Like, of course the fucking Native Americans know English. It's like, they probably speak English better than you fucking do. Anyway, so there was that cool moment. And I thought, like, so many things that game did that were so cool, but people just didn't appreciate it because it was just the new Assassin's Creed game that came out. I really feel like it would have made a bigger impact and people would have appreciated it at the time a lot more if it hadn't been for Revelations really killing people's enthusiasm. But I feel like history will validate Assassin's Creed 3. I want to feel like that's what'll happen, is people will look back and realize, whoa, that game kicked ass and did a lot of stuff that was really special, especially at the time. Before the political correctness brigade burst in and ruined everything. It had strong female characters, strong minority characters who were playing as a minority, and it was exploring the themes, the actual historical conflicts of being a minority in the colonies, in the independent colonial America, a nation that preached freedom and justice for all but kept slaves and subjugated the Native American Indians. And was really cool. And it was like all of this cultural shock where there were so many cool little character quirks of Connor, where as a Mohawk Native American, like, you can't just fucking touch people. Like, they have a real personal space thing where it's like, I don't know you. Like, we don't do this shit. And so all these fucking white people are always like slapping him on the shoulder and be like, hey buddy, and he's like, dude, Like, fuck, that's like really inappropriate. And he has this really great accent where the way he talks is really interesting because he's a Native American person and he's speaking with an accent, and the way he talks is like really formal in that way where like he didn't learn English from growing up around people who spoke English as their first language. He had to be taught English as his second language. And it reminds me of in this is a weird comparison, but in Yakuza 0, there's a character who's Chinese, and at one point a character was like, "Your Japanese is really good, but why do you speak so formally?" Like, because, there's casual, like really grungy ghetto bullshit English that's just the way I talk, which is just like we're barely even speaking English. It's recognizable, but we're not following proper grammar and syntax over here. And so he explains, like, when you're taking Japanese lessons, the Japanese in the book that it's teaching you how to speak is the super formal professional version. So that's the version that I learned, and I don't know how to speak Japanese informally. Like, it's not representative of the way I talk. It's just those are the words that I know how to say in Japanese. And it's the same way with the way Connor talks in English, where you can tell he's way more comfortable speaking in his native language. And when he talks in English, it's a little bit more structured and formatted because of that's the way you learn how to speak English. I before E except after C. Whereas someone who's more familiar with it and has grown up with it as their first language from birth is a lot more fast and loose, right? And there's just all this great shit in that game. And like Connor's teacher, like his mentor figure, is a black guy who probably used to be a slave and he's now a freed man. And there's this great exchange early on in the game where he's like you're not dark-skinned enough that you can pass as an Italian. Which, again, I feel like was a nod to Ezio, where everywhere Ezio zigged, Connor zagged. They're both motivated by revenge. And they're both being, like, introduced to this wider conflict that they didn't know about, even though one of their parents was involved with that conflict on one side or the other. Ezio's dad was an assassin. Connor's dad is a Templar. But, like, Connor's a very different character. So I feel like that was a little bit of a wink and a nod where he's like, you can pass as an Italian, and that's better than being native, and it's way better than being black. So, like, anything you can say to get the white people to not throw rocks at you from the sidewalk is what you should say you are, right? And Connor, being that naive, honestly kind of sheltered individual, is like, dude, like completely, like, colorblind to the point of being a complete idiot who can't see murder 2 feet in front of his face. Is like, what's wrong with being black? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no, like, frame of reference for social context of why that's a problem. And his mentor is like, oh, you're so adorable. Go do what I told you to do. And again, like, the whole plot of the game, and he meets his dad, and he meets his dad with his dad being like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, that was such a great first exchange where Haytham jumps Connor and he's like, oh, hey, dad. And Haytham's like, oh, shit, what's up, Connor? Okay, I gotta kill you now because you're an assassin, and I gotta kill you because you're an assassin and I'm a Templar. And so Connor's like, no, wait, bro. And they actually team up for a good couple of chapters because one of the Templars that Haytham recruited turned traitor. And so Connor's whole thing is, I gotta get Charles Lee, because Charles Lee burned down my village. So, like, I'll kill all the Templars to get to Charles Lee. And Charles Lee is Haytham's squire from the beginning of the game, who he inducted into the Templar Order during the You Like Them Apples achievement moment. So for a good couple of chapters of the game, Haytham and Connor are teaming up because, hey, we both want to kill a Templar. That Templar betrayed us, so I want to kill him. you're really good at killing Templars, Connor. You killed like 3 of my guys already, so you can help me kill this Templar. And so there's these big, long scenes of Connor interacting with his dad, who is a Templar. And they discuss their ideological differences. And Connor's sitting there being like, no, man, freedom and justice for all. And Hatham's like, dude, people are dumb. And if you give them absolute freedom, they're just going to fuck and rape each other. You got to have a more strict structured control. And Connor's like, yeah, and you guys are the ones who get to decide what the rules are. Look what happens when like that power goes to your head and you get corrupted. We're hunting down one of your buddies who became corrupted by that power. And Hatham's like, yeah, but like that's you the solution isn't complete disorderly chaos. Like there's like, yeah, if you let it be corrupted, we have rules for ourselves. We created rules that we force ourselves to live by, and we have the discipline to follow our own self-constructed rules, and that's what gives us the right to make the rules for everyone else, Connor. And Connor's like, no, fuck you. And it's really interesting. The main characters, the 2 characters you played as, are literally having philosophical, ideological discussions. And they don't come to a compromise, but they don't become enemies either. Like, they're enemies by circumstance, but they talk about their differences and they don't come... Like, every single one of those conversations basically ends with them going, okay, let's agree to disagree. We have shit to deal with. We gotta go deal with this shit. Let's just drop it for now. We'll come back to this later, but we'll drop it for now. Because you can tell Hatham wants to convert his son. You can tell Hatham wants to convert his son to become a Templar. And you can tell Connor is just like, I don't understand. Like, the position that you guys believe in is just so clearly evil. Like, why? Like, he wants to understand, but he refuses to agree. Like, he refuses to comprehend, but he wants to understand. And it's so interesting. And so, like, and during all this, of course, Connor's getting involved with the American Revolution, which is honestly the most boring part of the game. Like, just you're gonna join up with the revolutionaries, and you take place in the Boston Tea Party, and you're meeting up with George Washington. They had a really good depiction of George Washington, by the way. George Washington's a really interesting historical figure, and I feel like they depicted him pretty well. And like the conflict comes to a head, because after Hatham and Connor work together, they're like, we can't just go back to trying to kill each other after this. You know, they've reached a point where they understand and respect each other. So, like, something has got to give. You know, like, there's this mounting tension between them where they are father and son, and they respect each other, and they're working together, and they don't want to go back to fighting, but they just can't agree. They can't compromise with each other. They both disagree with each other so fiercely. And Connor's perspective is always framed as like, you're just a child. You don't get it. You're dumb and naive. This is the enlightened and mature point of view. And he's like, you guys are fucking evil. But as he goes through the game, he does start getting exposed to that, and it does start changing his mind as he grows. It doesn't change his mind from believing in freedom and justice for all, but he does start getting a more refined perspective on the harsh realities. Like the points where written belief clashes with the necessities and the pragmatism of day-to-day life. And that's what his whole character arc is about. And eventually, like, it comes to a head where Connor's like, I gotta kill Charles Lee, help me find Charles Lee. And George Washington's like, okay, I'll help you find Charles Lee, but, like, he's working for us, you know? So I kinda can't really help you out there, but you're helping us out, so I'll help you out. But he's kinda giving him the runaround, and Hatham also doesn't want him to kill Charles Lee, because Charles Lee's his boy. And he's like, I don't want you to kill Charles Lee, he's my boy, you just don't fucking get it. He's like, he killed my fucking mom. I want revenge. Fuck all of you. And it comes to a head where George Washington's like giving him the runaround. And Connor's like, he burned down my village and he killed my mom. I gotta go kill Charles Lee. And then fucking Haytham Kenway comes in and he's like, did he burn down your village though? Did he really burn down your village? And Connor's like, what? And George Washington's like, and Haytham Kenway's like, George Washington burned down your village and resulted in your mom dying, not Charles Lee. I was there, dude. They're my men. They didn't burn down the village. George Washington did. And George Washington's like, and Connor's like, and like something has got to give and the breaking point has been reached. And Connor's like, fuck you, George Washington, you piece of shit. You lied to me, you manipulated me, you killed my mom. I am done with you. I still want the revolutionaries to win, but I am done with you. And then, and like, Haytham Kenway's like, ha ha, and George Washington's like, ugh. And Kenway's like, ha ha, and then Connor turns to Kenway, and he goes, you fucking kept this from me. You knew about the truth, and you fucking lied by omission. And you're using this revelation as like a card in your sleeve to get me to turn against George Washington because it's convenient for you? They fucking killed my mom. You're fucking your baby mama, and you're just being like, haha, no, turned out your friend killed. Like, fuck you too, Dad. Literally, fuck you, Dad. And he's like, I am done with both of you. This bridge has been burned. I gotta go take care of my people. Fuck the both of you. And so, like, that bridge is burned. Like, there's no like, Connor and Kenway are enemies once again. He's refusing to aid in the Revolutionary War anymore. All he cares about is killing Charles Lee. Because Charles Lee might not have actually been the one responsible, but he's still an evil goddamn prick. Still gotta kill him. And he's still an asshole, and I was playing hide and seek with my friends, and Charles Lee was a mean to me, so I'm gonna go kill him. Because, like, you can kind of tell that it's super unjustified by that point. You can tell that Connor knows it's super unjustified. Like, he literally doesn't actually have a reason to want to kill Charles Lee anymore, but he just, I'm gotta go kill Charles Lee now because that's what I set out to do, and I have to do it out of obligation. Like, I still have all of this anger and fucking hatred in my heart, and I have directed it at Charles Lee for literally decades, and I can't let it go. I can't let go of this anger and hatred. And the game is pretty much explicitly going, nah, like, you're not good for doing this. Like, wanting to kill Charles Lee is not the sympathetic position. You know, and like the last vestige of his excuses, yeah, well, he's still a Templar, so I'm gonna go kill him. Even though his dad is a Templar and he doesn't want to kill him, and they've had this conversation back and forth this entire game of trying to come to a compromise between their ideologies. And so it's just like, dude, Connor, no. And so he and he's like, all I care about is killing Charles Lee. I put the tomahawk in the post. Like at the beginning of the game, his Native American bro came up and he's like, yo, we're going to war with the Templars. And he takes a mohawk and he shoves it and he like puts it in the column of the building. And he's like, for my people, when we go to war, we put the hatchet in the door, and we don't take it out until the conflict has been resolved. So for the whole game, that hatchet is in the fucking door. The tomahawk is in the fucking door. So every time you go back to your home base, there it is. You're still at war. So he goes to kill Charles Lee, and Charles Lee ain't there, and it's a trap, and Haytham shows up, and he's like, motherfucker, I gotta kill you. Like, you're a fucking idiot. Don't you fucking get it? Like, fuck George Washington. You don't like him either. Charles Lee will be the one who leads the independent America as the new leader, and he can be the Templar ideal and rule this new nation. And Connor's like, no, fuck you, Charles Lee. And he's like, God, you're so fucking stupid. All this shit I've told you all this time, and you're just not listening. You've been brainwashed by this psychotic murder cult of assassins, and you're just unsalvageable. I have to kill you. Fuck you, Connor. And so, like, you have this boss fight with Hatham, and you end up killing Hatham, and Connor kills his dad. And Hatham's like, God, you're so fucking stupid, but, like, you're kind of a cool guy. Like, you're really dedicated. You're incredibly skilled. These are all admirable qualities. I should have killed you years ago. Dead. And Connor's like, fuck. Like, he's just so drained. Like, physically, he's fucked up, and emotionally, he is a fucking wreck. At this point, his mentor is dead. He killed his dad. He literally has no reason to want to kill Charles Lee. He's just filled with, like, he's literally just fueled by raw hatred that doesn't have anywhere to go. It doesn't have anywhere to go. But Charles Lee is literally the figure on the wall that he has directed all this hatred at for years. So he's like, I got nothing else. I literally have nothing else in my life but my desire to fucking kill this guy. So he's going after Charles Lee, and it's this really, like, there's this big chase. Like, he's like, Charles Lee's gonna be at Hatham's funeral, so I'm gonna crash this Templar funeral. And it's actually this really cool scene where Connor is stumbling into the funeral, all fucked up, and all these Templars are like, oh fuck, that's Connor. That guy's a badass. Oh fuck. Like, all these Templars are literally pissed, terrified of Connor, even in he's a half-crippled state. And Charles is like, God fucking damn it, dude, you're such an asshole. And Connor's like, Charles Lee. And there's this big, like, final climactic chase sequence, and the story ends with Connor, like Connor is all fucked up, and Charles Lee is also all fucked up, and they just go to this pub. And they go to this inn with the bar in the bottom floor, and Charles Lee's just sitting there, being like, ah. And Connor walks in, and he's like, ah. And Charles Lee's like, God damn it. And Connor's like, fuck. And so they just sit down at the table, and Connor, like puts a jug of whiskey on the table, and he hands it to Charles Lee, and Charles Lee takes a swig of whiskey. And Connor takes the bottle back, and he takes a swig of whiskey, and he just pulls Charles Lee in, and they're just like forehead to forehead, like the two sons of Hatham Kenway, the two sons of this man, and Connor fucking stabs him and kills him, and there's no, like, satisfaction to it at all. It doesn't feel good. It isn't like, yeah, you did it. It's just like, Connor is truly dead. The person that Connor once was, the innocent and pure, like, optimistic, idealistic young man who was fueled by righteous vengeance to avenge his mother and free his people and overthrow the tyranny of the Templars. That man is dead. And the man that is left is, in some ways, a hollow shell, and in other ways, a more enlightened, mature, seasoned individual who has had his own beliefs tested. And he has been challenged, and he has changed. His belief structure is different now. And he has absorbed some of the qualities of the Templar ideology. And he does agree, like, absolute freedom isn't, like, it. That's a fairy tale. The harsh necessities of reality does call for some temperance. And it's so fucking cool, dog. Like, this character literally got torn down to nothing, and now he is left to build himself back up into something. And it bums me the fuck out, because in some ways, Connor is the character who deserves to be expanded on upon more in future entries into the series, but they're never going to do it now because Assassin's Creed 3 was critically, it sold well, but people were like, we're sick of the Assassin's Creed games. So Connor got hated on, and the game wasn't celebrated like Ezio was. Ezio was celebrated, so Ezio gets all the praise, Connor does not, and it's a huge bummer, because Connor's a way better fucking character. Connor's the best character the series has ever had. And in some ways, it's a bummer that we're never going to see that expanded upon. He's never even been referenced. I remember a write-up of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, where someone was like, it would have been cool if they had mentioned Connor at this point, but they didn't, because real life writes the plot, and Assassin's Creed 3 isn't beloved in the same way Ezio is, so we're gonna shove all these references to Ezio and Edward Kenway in there, but no love for Connor. And they were like, how cool would it have been to have a reference where he's like, alas, the truce between Templar Grand Master Shay and the leader of the assassins, Connor, was not to be. And I was like, oh man, stealing that headcanon, stealing that and making it a part of my headcanon now. But on the other hand, if Assassin's Creed 3 was meant to be the last game, we wouldn't have gotten more of Connor anyway, so maybe that is the best place to have left his character. And your imagination can fill in the blanks. And there's that great deleted scene, like this deleted monologue, where it's Connor after the events of the game, like he's having his final monologue of "This is who I am," like the Shadow monologue at the end of a Root and Shadow the Hedgehog, where he's like, "This is who I am." And it's Connor's "This is who I am" speech, where he's like, my dad was a great and wise man, but I cannot agree wholeheartedly with what he said. And I don't regret the way our relationship ended, even if I do wish I could have changed his mind. And in a small way, I wish he could have changed mine, but it just wasn't meant to be. Like, I'll never forgive him, but I'll never forget him at the same time for all the good and all the bad that he brought into my life. And now Connor is going forward with this new, measured, wizened, tempered outlook on the ideology of the Assassin's Brotherhood of nothing is true, everything is permitted. That has been influenced by the more positive qualities of the Templars. And it's really fucking, it's something that's also enhanced by Assassin's Creed Rogue, which was the first game where you're playing as a Templar, and showed how the assassins were the ones who were dominating the colonies until the events of Assassin's Creed Rogue, and they just muscled them out, and it showed how Haytham... Was it? No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. I didn't finish Rogue, unfortunately. I really liked Rogue, but I didn't finish it. And again, it showed what happens to the assassins when they get too big for their britches, when they're the ones in charge. And it shows how the Templars have to overthrow the establishment of the assassins in order to institute their own rule. And then you're playing as Connor, and you're overthrowing the Templars and establishing a new hope of the Assassin's Brotherhood. One that is one that has been challenged, and one that is less ideologically driven and more open to the idea. It's more open-minded. And like literally, like Assassin's Creed 3 starts out with there's one assassin, and it's your mentor, and Connor is the last assassin, and he recruits new members of his new order of the Assassin's Brotherhood in the colonies, and they liberate the colonies, and you really can see this idea of maybe a compromise could eventually be reached. Maybe. That's what the whole series seemed like it was building up to, this idea of a middle ground, of a compromise between the ideologies of the Assassins and the Templars. But either as a result of the necessities of Desmond's story, or because of the outside perspective of we gotta keep this series going, and Assassins versus Templars is what the series is all about, so we gotta keep perpetuating that. Can't have any resolution. Do not have a concrete resolution. Finish this story, but don't resolve the plot, right? Because we gotta keep making games. But that's what it seemed like it was building up to in terms of the whole plot of Assassins versus Templars. But then Desmond's story is he has to avert the end of the world, and he has to deal with with Abstergo's plan to take over the world. So he has this. So intermittent with Connor's story, you're having short sections where you play as Desmond. And again, it feels like maybe originally there was supposed to be more of this, but you have sections where you're playing as Desmond, running around, being an assassin and assassinating Abstergo guards and doing all this shit. And again, it's the same combat system. So you have Abstergo guards taking out guns and aiming it all slowly and firing once and then putting it away because it's using the same system as the muskets were used in Connor's gameplay, but it's fine. But it's still really goofy. And like he and Desmond is fighting Warren Vidic, and it's like really hastily wrapping up that conflict. Which it feels like a shame, because it feels like that's what the whole game was building up to, but now because they have to keep the game series going, they have to like kind of hastily rewrite and resolve it really quickly. So he has this really cool like conflict where he's fighting against Warren Vidic and this other character who's like supposed to be his Virgil, but it's not really well fleshed out. So he's fighting his Virgil and he kills him, and the game and that plot resolves in the same room that the Animus was in the original game. And he goes up to Warren Vidic and he assassinates him, and he takes the piece of Eden back and he bails out of there. And now Desmond is the one using the piece of Eden to make dudes kill themselves, just like Ezio did at the end of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. And it's so cool. And then he goes back to, and so like, now Abstergo does not have the piece of Eden. Warren Vidic is dead, and he was the brains of the operation, so that plan has been faltered. But you still gotta deal with the 2012 plot. So they go back to the underground thing, the underground structure. They find from Connor's memories where the key is, and it's his memory of him burying his mentor and going back home and seeing like the hatchet is still on the door. And he's like, well, I won. How about that? It reminds me of a moment from Doctor Who where he's like, I'm the last one. I win. How about that? I win. Everyone else is dead. Everyone on my team is dead. Everyone on their team is dead. I'm the only one left. I win. Take the hatchet out of the door. Buries his mentor because he died just of old age. You know, he was an old guy, and it's actually kind of okay. So he buries him and buries the key that he didn't know what it was, and he just buries it with him. And he's like, no one's gonna have this now. And so they go to where he buried it. They take it out. They use it to start up the machine. And fucking Juno comes in and it's like, yo, dude, you gotta do this shit. And then Minerva comes in and she's like, nah, son, she's an evil bitch. Fuck this Juno cunt. I'm the one who's got the master plan. And it's like, what's going on? And it's like, yo, there was a fucking solar flare and that's why our society got wiped out. Everyone died, our shit blew up. The only ones left were the humans that were preserved like Adam and Eve. And so, here's what you gotta do, Desmond. You gotta stay in here because the solar flare is gonna happen again on 2012. And the whole, and modern society is going to get wiped out as well, just like ours did. So you gotta stay in here and survive, and the few pockets of humanity out there that also survive will come out to a desolate wasteland landscape, and you will be the one. You will be the prophet who will lead them. And it's showing these visuals of Desmond as an old man holding these stone tablets, looking for all the world like a religious leader. Just like it's a cyclical, like it's presenting like the mythology of religion as this cyclical cycle, where eventually we're going to get blasted back to the Stone Age, and you will become the new religious leader who will lead humanity. But the cycle of the Assassins versus the Templars, the two warring ideologies of absolute freedom and absolute control, will eventually result from your teachings. And like she's predicting the future to him. And you're watching this and you're like, this is what the original ending was. This was how the series was going to end. The end of the Assassin's Creed franchise was, okay, you're safe in here, shit's dead, now you're the one in charge, and you're gonna lead society and rebuild society. But from his teachings, the Assassins and the Templars are just gonna happen again, and the cycle is going to repeat itself ad nauseum. That was going to be the end of the series. The climax of this exploration of ideological conflict where there is no true resolution, and like showing how history literally repeats itself through the scope of like religious leaders giving unity and enlightenment, leading way to religious zealotry. And it was like you can see the stitches of what the original ending was going to be, but then Juno goes, nah, son, nah, fuck that. We gotta keep making more games. And we can't have games where you're exploring the historical sandbox without the animus to justify it. We have to keep the modern day plot going, so nah, fuck that. Nah, Ubisoft just sent me a memo, and this is Juno saying this. Ubisoft just sent me a memo, and it says, hey, instead, why don't you do this? So that way human society doesn't get blasted back to the Stone Age for some magical bullshit reason. The solar flare will be, like, abstained, and the series can continue going on, and we can keep making more games. How about that? Literally, the villain of the series is corporate, like, keep the series going-ism. That's not literal, by the way. I was paraphrasing with my own embellishment. But that's what's going on. She's like, nah, fuck that. Like, fuck that. You can sacrifice your life, and that will make a shield around the planet that will stop the solar flare. It's bullshit. It's magic. They had to fucking pull it out of their ass. And Minerva's like, no, dude, like, don't. And Desmond's like, dude, I can't, like, if I can choose to save the world, I'm gonna save the world, okay? Fuck you. And so Desmond kills himself, like, dies, saving the world so the world doesn't end, and the franchise can continue going. And that is the point where, like, to me, Assassin's Creed 3 is the point where the Assassin's Creed series is dead. Like, it ended. Like, we're done. You can kind of pack it up there. If you wanted. Like, again, to me, Assassin's Creed 4 was the point where they're like, how do we keep this going? How do we keep this going? And they're just making shit up to try and keep it going, and the spark isn't there anymore. There is a weird kind of freedom that came with it, though, because they do start doing interesting little things. Like, I did really like how in Assassin's Creed 4, the modern day plot, you are playing as a bug tester for the new video game that Abstergo is making. Because alongside Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed Liberation came out for the PlayStation Vita, and that presented itself as, this is a game that Abstergo made from the genetic memories of Aveline, and you are playing as Aveline in these genetic memories in a video game. And like it's editing some historical things they don't want the normal people to see. Like they're trying to frame it as being sympathetic to the Templars, but then like an assassin hacker hacks in and shows you the truth or whatever. But they already established this idea that Abstergo is using the Animus to make video games. So in Assassin's Creed 4, you're playing as a new employee working for Abstergo, helping them make their new game by putting a personal Animus headset on, diving into genetic memories, and finding genetic memories that would be suitable for making a new video game. And you're running around this office that's just, hey, these are the Ubisoft offices. You're running around the Ubisoft office where we make the games. And there's all these interesting little collectibles you can get that are like files that's like, man, it sure sucks that we had to keep making these games, even though we didn't, like, we had an ending, but man, we're just making so much money, we gotta keep these games going, but that kind of sucks at the same time, because we don't know what the fuck we're doing. Like, it's a little bit of, like, dude, help, dude, in the plot right there. And there's literally a collectible in Assassin's Creed 4 that's here's a list of all the ideas for future Assassin's Creed games that we could make in the future. And literally, it's like listing the French Revolution, Egypt, like Victorian England, all these potential future games. And when you boot up Assassin's Creed Unity, it's again presenting itself as you've bought the Abstergo video game, and you put it in, and it's showing like Altair, Evelyn, Connor, Haytham Kenway, like all of these characters that you played, and it's like this is their game, and you can play their game, and it's got this fake Abstergo title, and then you can only play as the French Revolution one, obviously. But man, like you could like with Assassin's Creed 4, they were just fucking having fun with it, and the story of the historical thing, they really just don't even kind of try with the Assassin versus Templar thing anymore. Instead, they're taking remnants of the lore from Assassin's Creed 3 and expanding on it, because you're playing as Edward Kenway, Haytham's dad, Connor's grandpa. So it's a much more character-focused story, showing a character who is a douchebag, and he learns that he's a douchebag and stops being a douchebag. And that's kind of it. But the important thing about that game is you're playing as a fucking pirate, and you're running around being a pirate, and it's so fucking fun. It's pirate game to pirate game. And it was so fun. Like, again, the worst part about that game was anytime anyone said the word assassin or Templar. The best part about that game is Edward having this personal character-focused journey, and where you're running around being a fucking pirate. And it was really fun. It's like, have you ever played Sid Meier's Pirates as a kid? Or I remember playing this Pirates of the Caribbean movie tie-in game for the original Xbox, and it was Sea Dogs 2, but they slapped the Pirates of the Caribbean name on there for brand recognition, and it was a pirate game where you played as a pirate, and it was really fun, but it was really rudimentary and really like, but, and then, like, that's why I really loved Assassin's Creed 4, even though it had no soul. It was being the pirate game I always wanted there to be, but there hadn't been. Because Sea Dogs 2 is so old, it's hard to go back to, and Sid Meier's Pirates is way too disconnected, it's way too arcadey. But Assassin's Creed 4 had the pirate experience, and I fucking called it for so long in advance. I was like, they're going to Call of Duty this shit. Because Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare was really successful, so they made Modern Warfare 2, and it's not even called Call of Duty anymore. It's called Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. Call of Duty ain't even on the box anymore. It's Modern Warfare. And then Call of Duty Black Ops happened and kind of ruined that. That's my point. And then, so I was like, that's what they're going to do with Assassin's Creed 4. It's Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. So they're going to make a Pirates game. They're going to make Black Flag 2. And I predicted that would happen. But guess what? They fucking did that. Ubisoft is making a Pirates game. Ubisoft Pirates game. Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones. Ubisoft.
Here's some information about Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones is Black Flag 2. Skull and Bones is the Ubisoft pirate game. Look at that shit. They're literally making the game that Abstergo was making with the genetic memories of Edward Kenway. And I was like, called that shit from day one. The day I finished Black Flag and put it down, I was like, they're making Black Flag 2. And they did. It's called Skull and Bones. Called it. Really excited for Skull and Bones. Because it's just going to be Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, but without the Assassin's Creed part, and also probably a lot of weird modern day bullshit, but the important part is all the pirate shit. And I'm gonna fucking have my day at the ball with that fucking pirate shit. Holy damn. But anyway, like, like the modern day plot was really struggling to try and validate itself because they were like, hey, maybe Juno is still running around being evil or something. And they were like really struggling with that. And they were really struggling to figure out how to keep the conflict between the Assassins and Templars in the historical sandbox going. Because, again, the entire point was Assassin's Creed 3 was going to bring it full circle and show them reaching a little bit of a compromise, but now you have to completely throw that out the window and just show them continuing to fight forever. And, like, Unity was the one that got kind of the closest. Unity did something interesting. The reason Unity was bad was because they rushed it out the door a year before it should have been. But Unity did something interesting with the story, where the main character of Unity became an assassin because his dad was an assassin, and he was killed by a Templar. He was killed by Shay. By the main character of Assassin's Creed Rogue. And Assassin's Creed Rogue, which was released alongside Unity, and it was at that cusp of next gen is still too new, so here's an old gen Assassin's Creed game. And it was awesome because it was just Black Flag, but with the, like, a palette swap. Like, it was an expansion pack of Black Flag, where you're playing as the Templars and you're not a pirate, but you're playing as the Templars, but it's still all of those same systems being based around the pirate mechanics. And you were playing as a Templar, and the last mission, the ending of that game, is some assassin is going to assassinate Ben Franklin, and you, playing as the Templar main character, assassinates that assassin, and that assassin is the main character of Assassin's Creed Unity's dad. And so the main character of Assassin's Creed Unity, his dad was a assassin, but that assassin was kind of on decent terms with the Templars of France. And so a Templar of France who knew his dad, who knew that guy was an assassin, was still like, God damn, he was my favorite enemy, you know? And it's a shame that we had to kill him. And that Templar sees the main character walk up and he's like, Dad. And he's like, ah, shit, I feel bad now. And so he raises the main character as his own son. And he falls in love with his surrogate dad's daughter, because they have a cute little childhood romance. But she is being raised by a Templar to inherit the Templar ideology. So she's being raised as a Templar, and the main character is the son of an assassin, and he's not going to be let in on the secret society of the Templars because you can't trust that kid. He's just a stepkid. So literally, the most interesting thing about Assassin's Creed Unity is your main character is an assassin, and his girlfriend, who he is actively dating and in a romantic relationship with, is a Templar. So you do actually have that, like, that same kind of relationship, but completely without any adversary whatsoever. There is no antagonism. It's actually kind of worth looking up the cutscenes of Assassin's Creed Unity with that character in it. Because it's really fun to see her going, no, dude, you're an assassin, I'm a Templar, it's just not going to work out. And he's going like, I don't know what that means. Shut up, you're my girlfriend, okay? I love you, I know you love me, I'm not going to let this get in the way of that. I don't care. I don't care about that shit, you know? All I care about, like, dude, like, and that, they kind of cheat, because his whole motivation is there's a civil war within the Templars, and they killed his stepdad, who was also a Templar, in order to, as a coup, to take control of the Templars. So the only reason he joins the Assassins is because of a Templar civil war, which is pretty funny. And so she's like, nah, dude, we can't be together. And he's like, dude, I want to kill the people who killed our dad, too. I don't care about this fucking bullshit. Like, he has no investment in the assassin ideology whatsoever. He's literally just being part of their weird, creepy murder cult dogma to get what he wants out of it. And so, it is doing that interesting thing where the assassins are kind of all together, and they do have their institution of power, and they're kind of corrupt. They're kind of stymied by ideology and dogmatic restriction. And the Templars are like in a infighting and trying to scrounge together to overthrow the established Assassin's Order. And before the Civil War happened, there was actually kind of a working relationship between the Assassins and the Templars. A little bit going on there. And the Civil War is what's thrown it all out of whack. And so you do have these instances where, like, yo, I'm gonna bring my Templar girlfriend over because she wants to kill those shitty Templars who killed her dad too. And the leader of the assassins kind of being like, yeah, your dad was okay, but how do we know we can trust you? And it is doing, like, you can see them trying. You can see, like, they're trying to say, okay, what else can we do here? Like, they're not completely devoid of some sense of doing interesting things, but, like, that was one little nugget of the main character's an assassin and his girlfriend's a Templar, and they are together. There is no antagonism whatsoever. They are working together for a common goal, and they are in love, and they are in a relationship, even though she's a Templar and he's an assassin. And like, that was the really interesting nugget that game had going for it, but everything else around it was a goddamn train wreck. Everything else around it was unsalvageable, and it wasn't worth playing the game just for that. And then Syndicate, I barely even played Syndicate. Like, it was kind of going for a thing with the siblings where you could play as the brother or the sister, and they had a relation. I don't know. Syndicate was the one that people gave up. Syndicate was the game where people were like, we're done. We're done with Assassin's Creed. And I was on that boat too. I was like, I'm done here. I am done with this game. Even though it was better. It was technically a better game than Unity, but I was so done with the series, and so was everyone else. And that was why they were like, okay, we fucked up. We'll do better next time. And that's why Origins happened. That's why it's been 2 years since Syndicate, because they knew we have to give that game a little bit extra time to cook. Gotta give it a little bit extra time in the oven. And it shows. Origins is really good. But again, the worst part about that game is the part where it's Assassin's Creed, man. Although it does kind of get to cheat because it's a prequel. So it's not stymied by the same kind of issues. But, like, man, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster with the Assassin's Creed games. And the whole thing with the modern day plot was Rogue was the last one that did something interesting with the modern day plot, where your character you're playing as in the modern day is just a civilian caught in the crossfire between the modern day assassins and Abstergo, and you're in the middle dealing with the fallout of their conflict. And if you open up, like, the objectives list, it's like the objectives are written by your character, and you can actually see a little bit of character development of your character where you're like, I am fucking terrified. Like, there's shit beyond the scope of my comprehension going on around me. People are dying. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm so goddamn terrified by what's happening. And in Assassin's Creed Rogue, the, like, plot of the modern day villain in that is like, I want to convert the modern day character to the Templars and have you join Abstergo and come in on this plot of the Templars that are the modern day Templars that are Abstergo. And I didn't finish it, so I don't know what happens, but that was clearly his goal. He was fascinated by this notion that assassins become Templars all the time, but Templars never become assassins. So he was, like, using your character in the modern day as a training ground. But then Assassin's Creed Unity kind of dropped the ball with the modern day shit, where literally the assassins hacked your video game console and are like, you're an assassin now, help us find out information by playing the video game, and then we'll find out where the pieces of Eden are, and it's like, no one cares. And even with Origins, I'm like, no one cares. Like, I see where they're going. I see where they're going with it already, where, like, the modern day character is going to, due to the bleeding effect, learn how to become, like, have the skills of an assassin, even though she's working for Abstergo and she's an Abstergo loyalist. And there's probably going to even be sections of gameplay where she fights modern day assassins and kills them using the skills she got from the bleeding effect. But then at the end of the game, maybe she'll betray Abstergo and join the assassins. Maybe that's probably what's going to happen. She's going to be the first Templar loyalist to join the assassins. I don't know. Like, I can kind of see that that's where it might be going. Whatever. Like, really, at this point, I feel like they are... and I don't even think Juno has come up since Assassin's Creed 4. So I don't know if they've just completely dropped that or what. I seriously do feel like, at this point, they should just completely drop the modern-day plot entirely and just have the games be, you bought an Abstergo disc. You're playing a video game. Shut up. That's it. I feel like that really should be where the series should go. I don't know. I'm interested to see what the game after Origins is going to do. Because I wouldn't say the Assassin's Creed games are back on track. Like, this is a good one. Like, they actually made a good video game this time, but it still feels like... I still feel like Assassin's Creed ended in Assassin's Creed 3. Like, 5 years ago, this series ended, and it's a shambling corpse of a series that's just walking about being like, brains, wallet, money, give us your money, buy this game franchise because it's Assassin's Creed, and you will buy the Assassin's Creed established intellectual property. Like, I bought this because it's Egypt. If this game wasn't set in Egypt, I wouldn't have bought it. I don't care anymore. I don't care about the Assassin's Creed games anymore. I'm done. I bought this game because it's Egypt game to Egypt. I'll buy Skull and Bones because it's Pirates game to Pirates. But I'm kind of done with the Assassin's Creed games. I mean, I'll check in on what the game after this does, but I've tapped out. You know, they don't know what they're doing anymore. And of course not, because the series was supposed to end 5 years ago, and they're just making up excuses to keep the games rolling out. And the games individually can be good. This game individually is good, but I don't care anymore. I don't care about the Assassin's Creed games anymore, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame. Because this is a series that I have 3 hours worth of, like, getting a sore throat talking about those first 5 games. Talking about those first 5 games. There was so much to talk about, and now I just got nothing. Like, they're fine games, I guess. They're fun video games, but nothing after Assassin's Creed 3 is going to stick with me the way the original Assassin's Creed did, the way Assassin's Creed Brotherhood did, the way Assassin's Creed 3 did. Assassin's Creed 4 was great, but I only liked that game because it was Pirates game to Pirates. I only like this game because it's Egypt game to Egypt. I liked Rogue because you got to play as a Templar, but I didn't finish it. Like, I'm done with this series, and that's kind of depressing. Oh well. It should have ended 5 years ago, and I'm fine with that. Things can end. It's okay to let it go. It's okay to be like, this series is over. It might continue to exist because money, but I don't have that slavish devotion to brand name recognition that has people going, yeah, we want another Silent Hill game. Why won't you make another Silent Hill game? Because Team Silent doesn't exist anymore. Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3, and 4, those were the Silent Hill games, and now it's over. And now it's end. Why do you want another game with Silent Hill stamped on the box? That's what these games are now. They're another game with Assassin's Creed stamped on the box, and they're fine games, but I was an Assassin's Creed fan, and these aren't Assassin's Creed games anymore. They're games with Assassin's Creed on the box. Assassin's Creed is over, and I'm good with that. You know, it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Desmond didn't kill himself. He did become that prophet and led humanity, and that was and Connor might have uh, arrived at a compromise with the Templars and ended the war. Who knows? You know, that's how the series ended for me. And these games are fun, but I don't know how to end videos. I do like these games, and I'm glad. Like it's so cool to have a game made, like a game franchise made after 2005, that I do feel like has a special place in my heart. Having a franchise that was not like a holdover from the 16-bit or 64-bit era. You know, like it's nice that video games can still be this. It's nice that video games can still, in the new modern era, in like the last generation, Assassin's Creed was was the classical franchise of that generation. You know how like Mario and Sonic defined the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. Assassin's Creed defined that was the mascot franchise of the Xbox 360 and the PS3. It's cool that games can still create franchises that I can be attracted to like that. It's not just reiterating, oh, the next Mario, the next Sonic game, the next, those old intellectual properties. It's nice that we can have new intellectual properties that can be successful and you can be fans of and look back on and remember them with the same fondness that we look back on and remember the games from the 16-bit era in that way. And they'll keep making them, but that's how I feel about the Assassin's Creed games. In the same way I look back on the Super Nintendo when I remember Mega Man X. In the same way I look back on Sega Genesis and I remember Sonic. I'm going to look back on the Xbox 360, and I'm going to remember Assassin's Creed 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations 3, and maybe even a little bit of 4. I cannot wait for that Egypt education mode DLC to come out. That's going to be a fun one. Anyway, that's Assassin's Creed. Peace out. Oh, we work in the dark to serve the light. Nusquarum est verus, solum res est litisis. Which I think is nothing is true, everything is permitted in the, fucking original language. But anyway, I tried to have a cool ending, but I fucked it up. So, thank you guys for watching.